So which is it? Are you autistic, narcissistic, or maybe just a little bit of both? What's the difference? Now, as I go through these 6 things, you may recognize some of them that you could check off and say, yeah, I've been accused of that. But there's some others that you say, no, I've never, ever been accused of that. What we're doing is we're taking 6 of many traits of narcissists and comparing those to people who are autistic and see if they fit. And if I cough in just a moment, apologies, but I feel it coming on. Number 1 is this: superficial charm, that is to say, just being charismatic. Now, as a person who is autistic, and I don't know if this has anything to do with autism, I think it probably does, but as a person with autism, one thing I've never been accused of, among many, but I've never been accused of being charismatic. I've never been accused of having that, of being charming. And I've also never been accused of being athletic, but that's a different story. I mean, I wish I were those things. I wish I had more charisma. I wish I had more athletic ability, but life is what life is. That's the way it is. And the reason I make this one number 1 is because this is usually this is usually the one that drives home the difference between people who are autistic and those who are narcissistic, in my opinion. You know, I'm in my 70s. I've been observing for a very long time. Maybe I'm wrong on this, but I've not met a lot of autistic people who are charming or charismatic. They're just not, at least in my experience. But people who are narcissistic, they learn to be charismatic. It may not come natural to them. Some of them maybe so, but I don't think any more than other people. But they all tend to have this superficial charm. That is to say, it's kind of masking. They pretend to be charming, and they're really good at it because they are actors. Well, people with autism, yeah, we mask and we act out a little bit. And the older I get, the better I'm getting at masking, because I find it's just a communication form. It's kind of like learning a foreign language. Nothing wrong with that, only it's not necessarily verbal. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. But superficial charm, you know, being charismatic, yeah, I'm learning to be a little bit more friendly, a little bit more personable, but I don't think I'm ever going to cross a line where people say, you know, I met Ken and he is such a charismatic guy. So if you want to learn the difference between somebody or tell the difference between somebody who is autistic and narcissistic, because, you know, they say that that is to say, autistic people are aloof. And they say, therefore, they are narcissistic. Ask yourself this question: do they have charisma? Or do they have superficial charisma, you know, just on the surface? And if the answer is no, well, that's kind of obvious. So the reason I made this one number 1 is so we can get this out of the way at the very beginning. This is the telltale sign, in my opinion, and it's only my opinion, my 70 years of experience, that you can usually tell the difference between a person who is autistic and narcissistic from the very get-go, whether or not they have charisma, or if they come across, as they present, is the way to say it, of having charisma. Number 2, people who are narcissistic have no remorse. And again, all of these things, people who are narcissists tend to counterfeit them. You know, they tend to mask them. They can kind of fake them. They're actors, but some of these wear very thin. And people who are narcissistic, they just don't have remorse in this sense. They tend to rationalize their bad behavior. So if they steal from somebody, they lie from somebody, they cheat somebody, or they do something just by accident that displeases somebody that's wrong, you know, I've done things before, they tend to rationalize their bad behavior. Let's say that, I don't know, maybe you spill a glass of milk. A narcissist may very well blame somebody else, even if there's no one else around. They'll figure out a way to blame someone else for them making that blunder. You know, maybe it's because somebody made the milk too heavy, I don't know, or made the glass too slippery, Or maybe somebody said something and it scared them and startled them. They will say, I don't know, they just make up reasons. But they don't have remorse in the sense that they rationalize that behavior. And I notice that most people with autism kind of do the opposite. They will accuse themselves of bad behavior when they didn't do anything wrong. And I think this may be because throughout our lives we have been targets of people who like to, well, people who are narcissistic. They want to unload their bad behavior on somebody, and there we are. We're easy targets. So we take the blame. And take the blame enough times, and after a while, you start to believe it. Well, maybe I am to blame. Number 3 is zero affective empathy. And I do believe that people who are autistic have affective empathy. That is to say that we care about other people. We may not be very good at reading facial expressions, body language, nonverbal cues, nonverbal language. We may not be very good at that, but when it comes to affective empathy, that is to say, putting ourselves in other people's shoes, yeah, we're good at that. The problem is we don't communicate that very well. People don't see it in us because we don't come across that way. We don't present ourselves that way. The point is we have the feeling, but we don't express the feeling. So people just assume, those who live in the neurotypical hive mind, because they interpret us the way they interpret each other, they think, okay, this guy doesn't have any empathy. He doesn't care. He is aloof. He is or she is a narcissist. Something I've noticed about narcissists, psychopaths, is they like to stare at people. That is, dead in the eyes. And that is an indication of zero affective empathy because they're looking into you and kind of past you. It's like a form of dominance. Now, if you are autistic, you know, looking somebody in the eye is, well, it's one of those telltale signs. It's hard to do. I mean, I can't even look myself in the eye if I'm looking at a photograph of myself. Or if I'm looking at a photo of somebody else, even a portrait, a painting. It's just very uncomfortable. I don't know why. It's the way that we are neurologically, I guess. But people who are narcissistic or psychopathic, they love to stare people down. And I'm not sure they know they're doing it, but I think probably they do, because they like to control and they don't have any emotion. They don't have that empathy. They don't know that they don't care that they're making other people uncomfortable. Now I got to tell you, I got a problem staring at people. I don't mean to. I just study people. It's kind of like I'm watching a movie. It's kind of like I'm watching, a stage play or whatever. They're the actors, everyone else are the actors, and I'm just watching the movie, Well, people, they don't see it that way. They don't see themselves as actors. They don't see any movie. All they know is this nutcase across the room is staring at them. And that makes them very uncomfortable. But in the eye, no, that's almost impossible. Number 4 is impulsivity. People who are narcissistic or psychopathic, and I see these traits almost as synonymous. A lot of people argue with me on that, but usually where there is a narcissist, there is a psychopath. One and same person, vice versa, psychopath. Usually they have strong narcissistic traits, not always, but impulsivity is a trait that seems to be true of both narcissists and psychopaths. And when I say impulsive, that is to say they act on a whim. Do people with autism do that? Maybe, but my observation is people with autism are planners. We dig into the spreadsheet. We plan things ahead. Now, this is true of me, may not be true of you, may not be true of all people who are autistic, but my life is kind of like a spreadsheet. I could tell you a month from now what I'm going to have for dinner, what I'm going to have for lunch. I got it all planned out on a spreadsheet. I can tell you what exercises, workouts I'm going to do a month from now, or at least what I have planned for a month from now, or a year from now, for that matter. I've got it planned out. I think in the future, I'll lay things out in advance. Now, maybe I'm a little bit extreme. I don't know about you. Maybe you're not that way. But people who are narcissistic, they lack realistic long-term goals. Now, they may have some idea of where they're going in life, and it's kind of a fantasy where they think, just by virtue of the fact that they're wonderful, that they are destined for amazing success in life. Yes, I'm destined to be a rock star. I'm destined to be a multi-millionaire. They will say to themselves, I am destined to be loved by everybody, to be a success in politics, whatever it is. Meanwhile, some of them, not all of them, some of them are homeless. I mean, they're living off somebody else. And that, by the way, is one of the traits of a psychopath. Not all of them, again, but it's a trait where they tend to live off other people. So when we talk about impulsivity, we're saying that they don't have impulse control. They don't have any forethought. They don't have any reflection. They don't have any consideration of the consequences of their actions, the things that they say, the things that they do. Seldom do they stop and think about it. Now, here is something that's very telling. That, when I was doing the prep for this presentation, I was doing some research on the internet, and this is something new to me. I never heard this before. But they say that people who are narcissistic, psychopathic, tend to speak in the past tense. I never noticed. I did not know that. Maybe it's not even true. Because, everything you see on the internet's not true. But this seemed to be a reliable source. But the reason for that seems to be because they can't focus on the future. They're impulsive. So what are they going to focus on? Well, the past. Proof of their wonderfulness, for lack of a better term, is what they have accomplished in the past, which is basically nothing outside of their way of thinking. But maybe it's a way of just distancing themselves from the present, or distancing themselves from the fact that they really don't have a plan. And it may be just a very subtle way. They may not even know they're doing it, subliminal. But they say that people who are narcissistic talk in the past tense a lot. Number 5 is what we call shallow effect. We kind of touched on this, and that is they don't accept responsibility for just anything. Speaking of narcissist. Where people with autism, as we already said, sometimes we're inclined to accept responsibility for things that we're not responsible for, particularly if it's something bad. Now, if it's something good, then nobody wants us to take responsibility for that. That's just the way they think in the hive mind, the neurotypical hive mind. So people who are narcissistic have this shallow effect where they don't like to accept responsibility for doing anything that's wrong. Remember, we talked about the spilled milk, same thing. Number 6 is pathological lying. Now, this is a huge divergence between people with narcissism and autism. People with autism are painfully honest, and yeah, there are exceptions. Now, after I do these presentations, I almost always read the comments. And occasionally somebody will tell me who is autistic that, I don't know about this one because I lie a lot, they'll say in the comments. And maybe that's true. But those who are narcissistic psychopaths, they are compulsively deceitful. It's not just that they tell lies, but their whole life is a lie. Everything about them is a lie. Some of these people, they go to great extremes. Sometimes I think they're delusional. Other times I think it's intentional. But they imagine themselves to be somebody that they are not. They have a past life or a secret life that is really important. They like to imagine themselves being spies. I've seen this a lot, seriously. I mentioned this in another video, but I like to watch these videos on YouTube. I don't do it a lot, but, romance scammers, those tend to be psychopaths. They tend to be narcissists. And one of the things they do when they present themselves to whoever it is they're scamming is they need to come up with this alter personality, this alter ego that excuses their weird behavior, particularly the fact that they're absent a lot. And to fill in that gap, they imagine themselves and present themselves to be tied in with some secret organization. You'd be surprised how many times they do that. Or maybe you won't be surprised. But more surprising is how many people believe them. It's incredible. Pathological lying. This is sometimes called mythomania. I guess they live in a make-believe mythological mindset, mythological world. All right. let's tie all this together. So, what is the difference between somebody who is autistic and narcissistic? Because, we both look like we're aloof and detached and in our own world and we think we're special. Well, the difference, I think, is the narcissist is self-absorbed almost exclusively. And by that I mean they always imagine themselves to be the coach and never the player. They always imagine themselves to be the general and never the soldier. They are always the CEO in their mind, never the worker, even if they are a worker. They are the chief and never the Indian. I guess the analogies are endless, but they always see themselves as the leader. They are delusional, thinking they are the alpha in every situation, where people with autism, just the opposite. A lot of times we don't see ourselves as leaders, hardly ever. Sometimes we see ourselves at the bottom of the hierarchy, but I prefer to see myself not even in the hierarchy. That's what other people do, not what I do. There is a round circle, lower right-hand corner. If you click on that, you join our family by subscribing to our YouTube channel. Left-hand corner, there's a rectangle, and that will allow you to access our library of past videos. So click on that, and we can keep on talking if that's what you want, and we'll see you all next time.